What screams, "I'm a bad parent"? Story 1. Honestly speaking, verbal manipulation and humiliation. I had great parents but my cousins did not. My aunt has an elder daughter and a son. She used to verbally abuse her elder daughter in front of everyone. She even used to hit her in front of everyone. Mind you, this was when she was 18. 10 years later we were reminiscing our childhood. The daughter is pretty successful with a startup, but she pretty openly said in front of everyone, even the aunt, that the trauma a child faces that young isn't healthy and that even if she loved her mom, she wishes her mom treated her better. My aunt just shrugged dismissively, remarking this generation is too soft. Ironically, the younger son is spoiled as fuck and hit my aunt back when he was 18 in retaliation of being accused of selling cocaine in his school, which he did LMAO. Nevertheless, he was sent to Canada to study business and rarely talks with my aunt. Life is weird. Story 2. Zero interest in the kid. Doesn't care what they do or what happens to them as long as they don't inconvenience them. Story 3. I volunteer at / have had student placements at a children's hospital and we've had patients with serious brain injuries due to abuse, shaking, attempted drowning, etc. So yeah, I'd say those parents are pretty bad. Story 4. Parents who can't apologize to a child. It's okay to have human emotions and moment to be triggered or struggling and lash out or be wrong, but for the love of all things good, apologize and change. Story 5. Punishing adult children when they don't do everything you say by silent treatment or nasty texts. Days later acting like nothing happened. Saying, you never let go of things. Story 6. I was molested from age 3 to 6. Told my parents, but they did nothing. In my 20s, my mom had the audacity to tell me that I asked for it. As far as I'm concerned, I don't have a mother anymore. Story 7. My mother had not intended to get pregnant with me, and yet here I am. Almost every day of my life I heard that, I wasn't planned, I was unwanted, I ruined my parents' life. My childhood was filled with abuse and to this day, the parents still blame me for being born and ruining their lives. They also don't understand why I haven't spoken to or seen them in well over a decade. My favorite part is I would have an older brother, however he died in childbirth. My mother would always invent these lives he would have had if he survived. In all her versions, he would be an astronaut, or a doctor who cured cancer, or a rich successful businessman, all the while ignoring her 4 living children all have mental health issues caused by her. Story 8. I was assigned to arrange a free parenting with love and logic course a bit late in the evening for our school. I thought given the time the class was, lots of parents of some of the challenging kids who work, could make it to the class. Within a very short time, the class was full. I attended the class too and noticed the parents I saw were either teachers or parents of well-behaved kids. I felt so naive to think parents of naughty kids would even bother to show up. This still makes me sad to this day. Story 9. My mom has extreme accountability issues. Nothing is ever her fault. I'm 43 and after therapy this year I finally confronted her about the abuse I suffered as a kid, emotional from her, and physical from my dad. You know what she told me? That my behavior was the reason she and dad had marital problems, and if I had just tried to be a better kid, the whole family could have been happier. I'm very minimal contact with her for so many reasons. Story 10. This makes me so sick. I'm a high school teacher. I'm blessed to teach at an awesome school with, mostly, awesome kids. So many of the parents are so hard on their kids. Nothing but straight A's, constant studying, flawless manners at all times, applying to and getting accepted to all the best schools, and eventually becoming a doctor or lawyer is good enough. It takes every ounce of self-control I have to not smack the shit out of these sickening parents in conferences. I, of course, try my best to be kind and supportive to the kids. But it shatters my heart to see the damage done. Story 11. My mother-in-law is like this. We bought a small house on a half-acre, specifically so I can have a huge garden because that's my hobby. She's been sending my husband articles about granny pods, like we're ever going to build her a tiny house on our land instead of use it for gardening. She's in terrible health, also because of her own choices. She lives on Social Security and no retirement money because every time she quit a job during her working years, yes, quit, not lost the job, she would drain her 401k in savings before she decided to find a new one. Right now she lives in a senior housing complex with a sliding scale for rent because that's all she can afford. Story 12. Invalidating your child's feelings, struggles, and/or mental illness in favor of, you don't know what struggling really is, or some form of, back in my day, or, you kids are so weak. You have just robbed your child of support, told them their feelings do not matter, and informed them that you are not a safe person to confide in. Story 13. I remember coming home from freshman year in high school after a particularly bad round of bullying that day, mid-90s, and trying to talk to mom about it. All I got was, "Life's a bitch, sooner you realize that the sooner you'll get over it. It'll never be fair. Zero sympathy, no empathy for sure." Fairly sure, tough love was the agenda/thinking, but lack of love is what I took away from it. On one hand, my mom's not wrong, life is fucking hard and definitely not fair, but lack of love is the price she paid for her teachings. Later, in my 30s, she asked me why I never talked to her much or share many details of my life with her. We had a good heart-to-heart about how this approach in her parenting led to my distancing from her. While we'll never be close, at least we had an adult understanding, and she apologized and wishes things were different/regrets her actions. It'll never be perfect between us, but I will say to those out there, it/can/get better as you grow older. Story 14. I don't know if this really screams it, but I absolutely hate when adults tell other adults their children's shameful secrets for no reason. Even strangers. It tells me those children probably don't feel like they can trust their parents. Story 15. My dad used to do this all the time. I had a really rough childhood and did a lot of things I wasn't proud of. Every time I did something bad or embarrassing, my entire extended family and some neighbors knew about every little thing that happened within the week. It made me extremely antisocial, hard to open up with people, and stunted my growth because I just stopped interacting with anyone. Story 16. Happened to me. Not even serious stuff, but silly stuff children may confide in their parents. Once I discovered that it would happen every time, I just stopped telling my mom the stuff I wanted to keep private. Which kinda sucked in a way because I never could ask her for advice on how to navigate some situations. I guess it's my fault as well, but I've always been a private person and I think I preferred that as opposed to the rest of my family knowing my business. Story 17. My mom found a love note to my dad from his mistress, which included a condom. That day, she picked me up from school, 9th grade, drove a few minutes down the road in an angry silence, then suddenly pulled over and thrust this letter in my face. She then proceeded to come into my room, crying, a number of times over the next couple of years to tell me about their problems and the divorce. Meanwhile, just after the divorce, my dad used me as his relationship therapist with his mistress-turned-girlfriend. At one point I snapped and yelled, "I've never even been on a date, how would I know about any of this?" Story 18. The infantilization of their children. Wanting them to stay helpless babies forever because they don't want them to grow up. I'm a nanny and it seems like a growing trend. It's one thing to engage in some infantile behavior or spoil your children a little. It's another thing to bend to every whim and not make your kids uncomfortable. Example with some kids I'm currently dealing with, not potty training them. Story 19. Automatically dismissing and invalidating many of your child's opinions because you think since they're a child, they don't know anything. Yes, they're not always right, but they're still people and should be treated with respect. Story 20. Yelling at your kids. I don't mean, "Hey, get off the counter," or "Stop. You're gonna fall." I mean screaming things like, "What is wrong with you?" or "Do you even try?" When you get mad and get loud, you are doing three things. Teaching them that people are allowed to yell at them and say awful things to them, they should accept that treatment. Lowering their self-esteem. Whatever you are saying to them they will believe. If you say, "You're so lazy," it will not motivate them to be less lazy, it will simply force the lazy trait upon them. Teaching them that they should always avoid serious conversations with you. You are not a safe person to talk to.